Do you struggle with putting yourself first? Are you tired of feeling burnt out and overwhelmed from constantly putting the needs of others before your own? I have created a sacred space that will be available once a week for 10 weeks to learn, dive deep, and create your boundaries to boost your confidence and self-worthiness. Go to www.krista-luna.com and sign up for the Master Your Boundaries course starting in September 2023. And use the code PARANORMAL to get 30% off today on www.crista-luna.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Paranormal, the New Normal. I'm your host, as always, Jeremy, trying to bring some normalcy to this world. Does it ever happen? Not in today's world, God. But we try regardless, and we're going to keep trying. And, of course, I brought a guest with me to help at this endeavor, and we'll see if it works. And my guest today is Jassy Jackson, who is a shamanic, and I just totally fucked up, energy medicine practitioner, an energy healer, and a Reiki user. How you doing tonight, Jassy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Well, I get the podcast. That's all that matters because it makes life good. I get to tell the people about someone else in this world that's special and has abilities, which I love. And that's the reason I started this podcast to begin with. But first question I ask everybody is, what got you into this paranormal spirituality world that we live in?
Well, it's funny that you say that you get to do something that you love, because what really got me on this path is the fact that I wasn't following my own heart, and I wasn't following my instincts or my gut feelings. I'm an A-type personality. If somebody tells me this is the way to success, I go out and do it. I make a plan. I put myself through college. I got married. I climbed the corporate ladder. I felt like I checked off all the boxes, and yet I was still sobbing every day to work. I was still so sad, and I didn't understand why, because here's my to-do list, and I've done it all, and shouldn't I be happy at this point? And what was happening with me was that I wasn't doing what I loved. I wasn't doing what my soul was asking for. And I had been in therapy for many, many years. And while it did help some, I was still ignoring myself and my natural gifts. And I finally went to see a Reiki practitioner, and that changed my life. And that pretty much, from there on, I've been walking this path.
Reiki. See, I always pronounce that wrong. I know I do, and I just never can get it right.
I know you're good.
That's okay. My listeners are used to me messing up words. I'm sure of that. And just because I've heard it defined before, but everybody has a different definition. What do you consider Reiki to be?
Yeah, so Reiki is universal life force energy, and everyone has this Reiki within them. They have this universal life force within them. And what Reiki practitioners do is they are attuned to the energy to be able to harness it and move it. And what people do, or what practitioners do, is basically we're able to work with your energy to be able to move out what doesn't belong to you, to be able to basically clear out and reset your own auric field and your energy within.
Makes sense. I mean, and that actually might be one of the best definitions I've heard of it.
Thank you. I'm someone that looks for the science behind everything. So when someone first told me about Reiki, I was like, I don't know about that, but I had a meltdown and was like, you know what? I'll try anything at this point. And that was the thing that was presented to me recently. And so that's how I kind of fell into that path. But I was really looking at different like journals and experiments that have been done with Reiki energy, and was really trying to understand the science behind it. And that's how I came up with that definition.
No, that makes sense actually, because I'm a very science-minded person, and maybe that's why I like that definition so much. But because I speak science, that's just the way I've always been. If it's not scientific, it doesn't make sense to me. So,
Right.
but
Yeah, same. I mean, I'm a little bit skeptical, but then I'm always like, "But I'll try it."
well, the second question I ask everybody in the show is, have you had any experiences with anything in the paranormal realm, whether it be spirits, aliens, cryptids, take your pick, or anything that's just unusual to this world?
Yeah, so I've had quite a few experiences. So I'll tell you one that happened when I was younger, and then one that happened recently. So when I was younger, we moved into this house that I felt was haunted because I was having like sleep paralysis, where I couldn't open my eyes, I couldn't breathe. I felt like something was holding me down, and at some point, I was on one time when this happened, because it was happening regularly. My eyes were slightly open because when I sleep, for whatever reason, my eyes don't fully shut. My eyes were slowly open, and I could see in the closet mirror that there was something hovering over me. And it freaked me out. And the way I used to always come out of that is I would say like a short prayer that my grandma taught me. And my mom would have these accounts of like something like slapping her, or things would fall in the kitchen. And I was like, I got to get the hell out of here. So I moved away to college and never looked back. I was like, I'm not returning to that space. My parents moved away. And then recently, so there's two things that happened recently. When I do Reiki, a lot of the times, because I'm in a theta state, a lot of the times what happens is people's loved ones will come through, or their spirit team or something will come through, and I could see them coming in through the door. And after the Reiki session, I'll explain like, this happened, this sort of person came through, and people will normally be able to identify. So, for example, there is this Hispanic lady that came in, and all of a sudden I'm seeing this blonde kid in our room. He's really, really young, and it happened to be her cousin who had recently passed away, and she had not told me anything about that person that had passed away. So I thought that was really interesting. And my grandmother just passed in June, and before she passed, I was starting to see her in my peripherals, but she hadn't left yet. She hadn't been deceased yet. And so I started really looking into that and looking at different accounts. And there's the Milton Institute that also documents a lot of these kind of surviving deaths type of things. um and so it sounds like when people are transitioning from their life here on earth to the spirit realm, they're able to kind of leave their bodies, or whatever the case may be. But I was seeing her, and it was freaking me out. I was like, what is this? And so I was really seeking answers.
Nice. Oh, I mean, the house you grew up in, I would have loved to have like paranormal investigators go in there and figure out what was going on, whether it was just an angry spirit or if it was something worse. Even, I mean, it would have been interesting to find out. But I'm sure. I mean, I don't. I'm pretty sure it wasn't that long ago because you look like you're just in your early 20s. But
Thank you. I'm going to be 40 this year, but thank you.
all right, well then, I mean, like in that time frame, it wasn't a big a thing back then to have paranormal investigators come into your home. As like now, it's the first thing people think of when they have an issue is, oh, let me call some paranormal investigators. I could find them online in a second. But back then, it wasn't a thing. Like I never heard of it until I bought my house a year and a half ago. Like I never heard
Right.
of paranormal. I knew they existed, but I never knew how to contact one, or I never looked into it. I never needed to, but
And
When
the
I bought this house,
technology is also, like,
oh
better these
God.
days. Like, if there was back then, like, Ghostbusters was a thing, right? So, it was in someone's mind back then, but, I think that the technology today really allows us to kind of pinpoint and understand what these things are.
Well, yeah, I mean, I mean, look, trying to talk to spirits goes back to the 1800s I mean, even earlier than that, really. But the 1800s is when really first started getting documented. But it's just, it wasn't a thing for people to come to your house and be like, we're going to try to find the spirit and talk to it. Like, it just like if you did that in the late 90s, early 2000s, people would look at you like you're insane.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
let's have a seance.
I mean, back then it was just even psychics back then were just like the crazy people that work at small buildings or work at carnivals and I mean, it's just so not true anymore. And thank God it's not, because I met a lot of psychics and I yet to find one that I believe is faking it. So it's a good thing. But so you pursued a career in psychology. How has that helped you like get to where you are today and all the holistic medicine you use?
Yeah, I always felt like my calling was to empower people and to show them different modalities and different ways to heal themselves. And I thought that psychology was the legit way to do it, right? I was trying to follow society's rules. And it just didn't work out that way. I just felt so restrained, so not like in a box almost, and I just ended up not pursuing that. But I do leverage it these days in a sense that almost every person that comes to see me for Reiki, they find me online, they don't know anything about me, but what they're looking for is a career change or some change in their 9 to 5. And that is kind of where I leverage my psychology, because my specific area of expertise is work psychology, industrial and organizational psychology, and understanding that realm really allows me to empower people with different modalities, not just psychologically, but also spiritually.
Oh, that makes sense. And so, how has the psychology and I'm going to butcher this again. I already know it, but and the shamanic energy kind of work together. Like, does it work together, or is it kind of like two opposing thoughts in your head going against each other constantly?
Well, I will say that when people come to me for a shamanic alignment, it's usually because they're looking for a spiritual path or they're looking to heal something. And so that's like one session in itself. But then the conversation will go down like, I really need to get out of my 9 to 5, or I really need to find somewhere where I will be happy, and I will use a lot of the psychology things to get through those conversations and kind of give them, walk them through the workshop that I have. But in between, there's going to be resistance. There's going to be things that we've been taught, limiting beliefs that are ingrained in us, that where I'll then use some of the shamanic practices in order to kind of relieve some of that and redirect their energy or realign them to where they're supposed to be.
Makes sense. And I got to ask this, since you say you do mainly like workplace psychology and whatnot, because this just came up in like a recent episode of South Park where they touched on this, and it's something I really wasn't aware of till I saw it on there, and I like kind of looked into it. But the fact that people think they need like mental health days once a week now, or that they need like work from home Wednesdays, or like people need all these different accommodations from their job now. And I mean, as someone who actually works in an office again, because I did work from home for a good 6 months, and it was lovely, but I knew when I was looking for a job that if I wanted to work at home, I wasn't going to find one to make the money I need to make working from home. So I settled down, and I'm now back in basically a 9 to 5 office experience. But so, like, what do you think about like this whole world where people think they need to have like mental health days all of a sudden and work from home days because they can't handle coming into the office? Like, to me, it sounds like an excuse to be lazy, but that's just my personal opinion.
I mean, I think it also speaks to whatever it is that we're doing is not working. Um, there are days where I wouldn't say like every Wednesday, but like once or twice a year where it's like, I think I really need to call out today. I feel super overwhelmed for whatever reason. I think that there are like in every industry, in every area of our lives, there are going to be those people that take advantage of it and, try to scam us out of things. But I think for the most part, some people are just so burned out and so overwhelmed and they don't see a way out in earning a living or in doing something different because this is what they've been taught, that sometimes a mental health day is necessary. That's of course me looking at the glass half full. For those that are trying to kind of game the system and kind of be lazy, well, I think that's its own kind of lesson and its own kind of karma. Because if you're not happy where you're at, you're just never going to be happy, because I feel like happiness is a state of mind. But I do think that because this is the way that our culture is moving towards, it speaks to this is not conducive for a well round out balanced life.
See, I mean, I was brought up like, I mean, I was brought up in the 90s to early 2000s. And I mean, I was brought up that you go to work every day, no matter what. Like, unless you're violently sick and you going to work is not going to be a good thing for anybody, or or if you're seriously injured and bleeding or have a broken limb, like you go to work and you do what you have to do to bring home the
Yep.
bacon, basically. Like that's how I
Yep.
was brought up. And my father owned his own business and he never really missed a day of work unless he was deathly ill, or same for my mother. I mean, that's just the way it was. And I mean, yeah, my father would go to the bar at lunchtime and spend 2 hours at the bar. But I mean, that's to me, that's more of an appropriate way to spend it than taking the day off. Like if I'm having a bad day and I get to lunchtime and I was like, "Ugh, I need to relax. Like I'm either gonna go in my car and take a few puffs of a pre-roll because it's legal here, or and my company, if they even know I do it, they don't really care. But I mean, I talk on the phone all day, so it kind of makes me a little more conversational if I'm that way. So you think they would improve it, or I'll go to the bar and I'll have a couple gin tonics or something, or a couple beers and just relax. Like it calms your nerves, it makes you relax. Like it just you go back to work smiling. Like I think places. I mean, yes, there are people who can't do that because they have alcoholism issues or other issues and they can't do those type of things. I get that. That's of course different. But I think workplaces should encourage that, or like do maybe on Wednesdays and Fridays do like a lunchtime thing for your employees where you're bringing pizza and have like a 12 pack waiting for your employees. Like do something like that where it's just they can relax. I mean, don't let them get intoxicated, obviously, to the point where they can't work, but let them have a couple beers and get a little tipsy and do their job. As long as they can still do their job, who cares? Like that's my
Yeah.
personal opinion.
I absolutely agree with that. I feel like there are some companies that do embrace that, and they'll even have like a bar tap in their break room or whatever. And I've even seen pictures of it like in the 50s of like different job places having that. I thought that was really interesting. I think it's all a balancing act, and I feel like for me, when I had my breakdown, I really should have taken a mental health day because I was going in every single day sobbing to work. I loved my job. I loved my job. I loved the team that I was leading. I loved the company. I loved the people that I worked with, but yet I still wasn't happy. Something was wrong. Something was wrong mentally. Like I'm not doing the things that my soul wants to do. Like I've been following everybody else's agenda, right? And so I think a lot of it, and I mean, you said it too, like this is how we grew up. We grew up in a world where this is the way it was. You have to have a 9 to 5, you have to go to work every single day to pay the bills type of situation. And I think a lot of like the younger generation is starting to realize that this isn't like the end all be all, and is there a different way to kind of be able to live a more balanced life?
Exactly. I mean, I've always heard like that in England they do like you get like a you work like very short days or something along those lines, and you have long like 2 hour breaks for lunch, and there's of course tea time in the afternoon where everybody stops and enjoys their teas and biscuits or tea and the things I can't remember the name of right now for the life of me. But I want to say sconces, but I know that's not right. But scones, like, when
Scones.
yeah, they sounds close, but they enjoy like I've always heard that about England. I'm always like, my whole life I was always like, that must be nice to actually be able to have that much of a break and to work shorter work days and like, but I don't know. It's just, I mean, Americans are all about making that dollar, and you can't do it unless you're working. Like, it's just, I mean, with my job, if I'm not on the phones, the chances of me making a sale are a lot lower than they are if I'm just sitting there like drinking tea. Like,
Right.
like
Yeah.
the only way I'm making any money then is if someone actually just calls me, that's one of my customers, to buy something out of the blue. I mean, which happens, but it's rare. It's not as common as it is if I call someone and they're actually looking for something at that point. But to get it back to what you do, what, like, when a client comes to you, how do you embrace their individual needs? Like, what's your thought process like behind that?
Yeah, every session is absolutely different. Even if you've come to me 4 or 5 times, like, every session's gonna be a little bit different. So the first thing that we do is we sit and chat, either catch up, or if it's the first time that I'm meeting you, I, talk a little bit about how I got into it, what it is, what to expect, and all that good stuff. And then I get to know them and understand exactly why they are looking for a Reiki practitioner or a shamanic practitioner. And depending on how much is going on, that session could last 20, 30 minutes. That portion of the session can last 20 to 30 minutes. And then I ground both of us with a short grounding meditation. And then I get into the energy work, and the energy work will last 30 to 45 minutes. Each one is absolutely different. So sometimes I'll do Reiki, sometimes I'll do shamanic alignments. It just kind of depends, but I always seal everything and uh, let the energy settle with a nice sound bath. And after the sound bath, then I let them know that it's okay to come out of the state that they're in, come back into the room, and then we share. So I share my experience, which is different every time. Like I said, sometimes loved ones will come through. Sometimes I'll get images. Sometimes I'll get lights. Sometimes I'll get nothing and they're experiencing it all and their gifts are like coming online. And if they feel called to share, then they'll share with me. And then I end it with a quick little oracle reading.
Sounds lovely. Honestly, it does sound lovely. But what is, like, because some people might be thinking this, and I mean, I know there's a difference, but I'm not exactly sure where it lies. What is the difference between when you use shamanic energy and when you use Reiki, which I know I just butchered both those horribly?
That's okay. Yeah, so with Reiki, I often feel like Reiki is a very masculine energy, but it's still gentle. It just feels different when it comes in through the body, and when I'm working with it, whereas shamanic practices is more about dealing with like the spiritual realm and using guides and using a very specific guided energy medicine to move that energy. And it's more of like, so with Reiki, there's very specific hand positions, very specific symbols that you use. It's very, the origins of it is Japanese. And it's very regimented. Whereas the guided energy medicine, it's very different every time. You might get light language from me. You might feel sensations. You might get images as well as Reiki. But it just feels different. It has more of a feminine feel to it, if you will.
Okay, so I mean, I'm sure you use both for both genders, of course, but
Yeah.
depending on the situation.
It
But
depends on the situation and what the client needs, and if they came to me specifically for Reiki, then I'll do a Reiki. If they came specifically for an alignment, I'll do an alignment, but if it's like, "Oh, I can do either," then we kinda talk about it and kinda figure out what's the best one for them in that moment.
makes sense. And I'm how do you make it a safe and support space for people though? Like, because everybody does it different, but like, what do you do to prepare for a session, say?
Yeah, so I definitely use Palo Santo to clear the space of any paranormal activities that might happen. I There's a specific meditation that I do in order to get into the state that I need to get into. There are very specific prayers that happen for the shamanic alignments that I do as well. And then, like I said, I speak with the client and ensure that they're feeling safe and grounded. And then I also go through a second meditation while they're there to get us both grounded.
Make- That's a seems like a lot of work. Honestly, it does. And in fact, you do it for each client. When I'm sure you see multiple clients a day, like that's just a lot of preparation. But it's good you do it. And I
It's
wanted
part
to
of
ask
the
that.
ritual.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask that just so that if anybody wants to come to you, they know it's a safe place, of course, to do it, which I had no doubt. But people like to be reaffirmed to things in this life. What can I say?
Of course.
So, can you share some like examples of how you've aligned people back to like the path they should be following? Well, I mean, you don't have to use real names or anything, obviously, but
Yeah, of course. So I actually just had a wonderful woman who came to me because she was looking for direction in how to start her own business. And she didn't know exactly what she was going to start it in. She was in the corporate world, and she has such great talent for art, and she came specifically for the Find Your Calling program. And what I do is it's a 3 to 6 month program, and what happens is we really start to kind of assess who you really are, right? Like start to remember the things about your childhood, start to remember things that you love about yourself, because oftentimes we're like, okay, on the to-do list, what's next, what's next, what's next. We don't tend to kind of reminisce on our past victories and things like that. So I'll use astrology, I'll use Myers Briggs, I'll use human design, and all these other wonderful tools that are out there to allow people to kind of revisit themselves. And it's like, oh, yeah, this also reminds me that I really love this. And then in month 2 to 3, I usually start to get objections from people because now they're really moving in a certain direction. And now it's like, wait a second, wait a second. My brain is telling me that this isn't safe. This is out of the ordinary. This is how I got to success. And this is totally out of the norm. And so we start to work on limiting beliefs and do some work on inner child work. And it's kind of tailored to each person depending on where they're at and where their resistance is. And so I use some of my psychology and some spiritual modalities to kind of get them back on track. And then usually around month 3 to 4, they start to really break through and start to put down their blueprint. I always advise most people not to leave their 9 to 5 because that is where the income is coming through, but to make room in one way, shape, or form for the things that their soul is calling for. And then they start to kind of make that transition. And so I had this lovely young lady who came to me. She had all of these ideas that she wanted to do, and she's narrowed it down now. She's an oil canvas painter and has been selling her paintings online. And actually, she went through crypto. She's now on blockchains and selling her art there. And she's just doing amazing things and really pouring her heart and soul into her art, which is where she wanted to go or what she wanted to do in life.
see, I mean, I might have talked to you about that after the interview's over because I I've always felt like I don't know. My dad famously always said to me, and my brother, that I'm however many years old, however old he was at that time, and I still don't know what the fuck I want to do with my life. Like he would say in his 40s, his 50s, like until he died when he was 58. Like he said, yeah, my father passed away when he was 58 back in 2017 from heart issues, basically. Long story. Cancer ruined the sac around his heart when he was a teenager, and he had a heart surgery and he couldn't recover from it. So, but like he always said, I don't know. I'm 50, 3 years old. I don't know what I want to do with my life yet. Like that was what he was famous for saying. Our whole childhood is when he was trying to tell us like how to find our paths in life. Like I don't know what I want to do, and I'm this old. It's okay if you don't know what you want to do yet. And I feel that because I'm 34, almost 35 now, and I still, I mean, I've done everything. I've done retail. I've done management. I've done restaurant work for many years, and now I'm in sales, and it's just like I'm good. I can succeed at anything I put my mind to because that's just the way I am. Like I can find a way to succeed anywhere I am, but my true purpose to this day, I still don't know what it is. I mean, podcasting kind of feels like it is my true purpose, like just getting people's stories out there, but there's no money in it yet, so I can't exactly do that yet because I need to support my wife and kids. So, but I don't know. It's just, I feel that like for people who don't know what their true purpose is, I truly feel for them and I truly am copacetic to everything they're feeling because I just get it. Like, it's just, I don't know. I mean, part of me feels like I should have been a writer. Part of me feels like I should have been a teacher, which I tried to do. I tried to go to college for that, but that didn't work out. But it just was too long in college. But I don't know. I just never. My father always said it, and I agree. Like I'm 35 years old almost, and I don't know what the fuck I want to do with my life yet. And I'm halfway through the point in my life where I'm going to be working, hopefully. So, like, seems like I need to find it. It seems like there's a clock ticking always that you need to find it, and because you don't want to be 90 and then finally find your purpose, and then next thing you know, you're dead. Like, if I live that long, even, I mean, as you can see, I'm a smoker and a drinker. So if I live that long, even, it's a blessing. But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just,
And
I'm voting.
I don't think that you're alone. I don't think that you're alone in feeling that way. I want to say that most people that I come across have expressed that in some way, shape, or form, right? And I think that we're always evolving as we go through our stages in life. And what might be your purpose today might not be your purpose in 10 years, but whatever it is for today, embracing it and experimenting with it instead of just kind of thinking about it or wishing it, right? And experiment with it and kind of see where it goes. And I think that that's where a lot of people kind of get held up. It's like, okay, well, all I know is what I've been told, which is I need to go to school or go and get a 9 to 5 job, where there are so many different routes that we as human beings can take, right?
exactly.
And that.
Exactly. And I mean, it wasn't, I didn't really didn't even have that option because my parents always instilled in me, you need to go to college. Like there's no other way around it. It wasn't until I graduated with my first 2 associates from one school in 2.5 years. Cause I did that, but, it was just lucky a lot of the classes lined up. But I mean, it's just like it was at that point, I told my father, I want to take a semester off before I go to another school. He was fine with it. And he said, okay, do what you got to do. Like, as long as you're working while you're taking time off, then do it, which I was. And then I went back to school and went for a different associate's, which was the biggest fucking mistake of my life because I should have just went for a bachelor's and got it done with. But we learn and we move on in life. But I mean, it's just like, even after 7 years of college, I told my dad, like, I'm done with school. Like, I'm burnt out. I skip class constantly to go just get high with my friends because I don't want to be in school anymore. I'm sick of going to classes. I'm sick of having to pay for all these books that are ridiculously expensive for college students, something I'm highly against. Books should be free in college, for God's sake. Make the rich pay for them somehow. Sponsorships or whatever, but make the rich pay for them. But it's just, I mean, and now here I am. I mean, I'm not working entry-level jobs anymore, thank God. But I mean, but now I'm working sales, which I never wanted to be in sales. It was something I was highly against my whole life up till now. But it's the first job that I interviewed for this time around, and that said, okay, we'll bring you in and we'll try you. I'm working through a temp agency, so when it's time to switch over to the real company, if you're not making success, then we don't want to keep you, obviously. But if you're having success, and which I already am, of course, because that's me. But I mean, now I'm in a career I never wanted to be in technically, but part of me's like, was I meant to be in this? Like, I just,
And maybe
it's
not, maybe not. What I like to say about moments like this, like that you just described, is everything is medicine. That's what you're taught in the shamanic path. Everything is medicine, right? And so what you're learning right now through this job could actually be a stepping stone for you for the next thing or whatever it is that you are meant to do, right? You're acquiring all of this knowledge and all of this experience for your next thing.
exactly. I mean, life is just about learning. That's all it is. Whether you're in school or not, you're learning in life every day, whether you realize it or not, until you die. I mean, my grandfather learned new things until he died at 80 something, or 90, whenever it was he died. I don't even remember his age, honestly, because he was born in the 30s and died in 2010. So I honestly don't know. But he, maybe he was born in the 20s even. I honestly don't know. But like he would learn new things every day, even as like a 70 something year old. He would learn new things just by reading about them in the paper or seeing it on the news. He would learn new things. And that's what life is. It's about learning the next step and learning new things to get you to that next step. And I don't know. It's just, I mean, it's like the paranormal. I have always loved the paranormal since I was a kid, but now
Mm.
doing this podcast for a year now. It's been a year as of the beginning of April, I guess. I mean, I got the email from Anchor like a week or two ago, but it's been a year now, and I've learned more about the paranormal doing this podcast than I ever would have imagined I would ever learn, and it's amazing. I mean, I love the paranormal. It's one of my loves in life, but I just don't see myself being an investigator. I don't see myself. I mean, I'd love to be in like a science role trying to do things about it, but there's just no path for that in this life, and that's the sad part.
Mm.
Because I actually looked into it in high school. I looked for colleges that had cryptozoology majors, and I found like two in the whole United States, and they were nowhere near where I lived. And
Wow.
I was the type of kid who was a little nervous to go far away from home at first. Like I didn't want to be one of those kids that went halfway across the country to go to school. Like I was too close to my parents to do that. Like it's just I was scared, for lack of a better word, scared.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not afraid to admit that now, half my life later, but I was just scared then. And part of me wishes I did do it, that I could have went and done something I wanted to do. Like of course, later in life, we always look back and want to slap ourselves and go back in time and slap ourselves
Yeah.
for doing something stupid when we shouldn't have. We should have followed the path we wanted to follow. But, well,
Well, thank you
enough.
for sharing that. I mean, I think that that's the first step, and we're kind of realizing like, oh, that was a fear of mine that I had. Have I overcome it? It sounds like you have, right? Your life is very different now. But also, I like to tell people it's never too late to follow a passion. So if that's something that you're truly passionate about and can experiment with acquiring some of that knowledge to see if it's a true path, I would try to find ways to kind of see if there's like maybe any online courses that will give you a hint of like what that path would look like.
Yeah, I mean, and if you have the money for it, go for it. Personally, I'm 2 months behind on mortgage, so money's a little tight. But that's life. That's life in this day and age because everything's going up from food prices to
Oh
gas
my
to everything else.
gosh.
And they just announced that food prices are going up again, like 8% or something like that. Like it's ridiculous. Like
Oh my gosh, you're
how,
kidding. I
I
don't
mean,
watch the news, so that's news to me.
I don't either. My wife does, and that's where I hear
Oh,
about all this stuff. But I personally think the news is depressing as hell, and I try to stay away from it. But
same.
I mean, yes, in reality, that's only like another 8 cents per item, but still, it's just like really, it's getting to the point where how they expect people to survive and eat and like be able
Yeah.
to live, like it's really getting to that point because. I mean, I'm on food stamps. I'm not afraid to admit it. Like I never thought I'd be at this point in my life, but I'm on food stamps because
Right.
I can't afford to feed my family like off a regular job and still pay all my bills. Like it's just impossible. And apparently the government agrees because they gave me food stamps. So I mean,
Right. Yeah.
if you agree with the government, then why aren't you doing anything about it? I mean, this is not a political podcast and I shouldn't go on these rants, but sometimes I get pissed off.
Understandable. I can't believe it.
So, how do you typically encourage people to continue their path even when they're done with you?
I do regular check-ins with them even after the program is over. Um, a lot of the times, during our check-ins, I'll remind them of the different modalities that they've learned. So throughout our program, or even like one-on-one sessions, I will teach something that they can walk away with, whether that's like tapping or their human design chart or whatever the case may be. I like to remind them of the tools, and also I have my own podcast called Beyond Meditation Podcast, where I interview a lot of people with different modalities and things that I've experienced, and also encourage them to continue to listen there so that they can continue to be, um, be on their path, and also learn new things that will allow them to keep that path open.
See, okay, it's not the first time you use that word, and I'm not ashamed to admit it's the first time I've heard that word modality. Like,
Oh,
what is the definition for that word? Because it's just driving me nuts.
yeah. So modality to me is like different things that you can, or different types of um methods that you can use to change your energy, shift your life, get on the path. So, like yoga is a modality. There's emotional freedom tapping that I teach. There's qigong that I teach as well. Breath work, human design, astrology, tarot. Like all of those are different methods and modes
Oh,
that you can pick up and say, yes, this is for me. And I teach the different ones because not everybody is the same. Like, no, it's not a one size fits all. So some people might be really, really into meditation, while others are like, that's not for me. And so I'll teach them breath work and see how they feel about that. And usually they'll go with that. And if breath work is not something for them, then I'll teach them something a little bit different, depending on what their need is and where their energy blocks are.
yeah. See, I mean, meditation. I cannot freaking do meditation. Like
I would get that.
I've tried. Like I've had so many people on my show like tell me like give me tips to try it, give me free videos to try it and whatnot, and I'm like, I can't meditate. Like my mind doesn't shut off that long. Like it just doesn't work. But and I mean, breath work is kind of the same thing for me personally. I interviewed someone on here about a week or two ago, and they actually use breath work to do hands-free orgasms. Like
Okay, yeah, I've heard
like
that.
she's an erotic expert and stuff, and like I was completely like really like I would that's something I would love to learn how to do, but it's like I can't do breath work. Like it just doesn't. I mean, maybe it's because I'm a smoker. I don't know, but I just like breath work doesn't work for me. Like I can't like after a minute of like trying to control my breath, I'm just like, why am I doing this? But I mean, it's me personally. I mean, I don't know. I'm an enigma, and I still don't know myself at all. So doing this podcast has helped me learn a lot about myself personally, but
That's awesome.
mainly what I can't do. And yes, I was going to get into your podcast in a little bit because I want to ask some questions about it, but but I wanted to ask you about this because there's a lot of misconceptions about holistic healing to this day still. I mean, not as many as there were when I grew up and when you grew up. Like there was not as many as there were. Like it's just a lot more understood these days, and a lot more people are embracing holistic approaches to everything.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with the people who have misconceptions still?
I mean, it's just everybody is where they're at, right? And I try to meet people where they're at. I don't try to convince anybody of anything, because honestly, like if somebody were talking to me about Reiki in 2012, I'd have been like, "You're batshit crazy, out of here," type of situation, right? Like you can't convince me of anything back then. Now I'm a little bit more open, so it's I don't think of it as dealing with people, more in like trying to discover what it is that they're open to and working with that.
Makes sense. I mean, because you don't want to just tell people they're wrong because then they're never gonna come around. Like they're just gonna get all frustrated and walk away basically, or argue with
They're
you
not
until
ready.
or they're going to argue with you till they're out of breath, because that's the way
Right.
people are nowadays. But it's just, you got to convince them to see the light, almost, in a way, like convince them, not even in a religious way, but just convince them to see like the light, that this can work. Like, you just have to give it a chance. Just give it a chance. I mean, I
I do
used to be one.
believe oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Of
I
course.
was gonna say, I do believe that when the person is ready, the teacher will appear. And that has been my experience throughout this whole thing is I don't really do a whole lot of marketing on my space, on my my practice or anything like that. People just find me on Google. And the reason why I think that it works beautifully for me is because I set a very specific intention that people will only show up when they are ready. When they are ready to be open to it, when it's not a parlor trick, because when you treat this energy work as a parlor trick and you're trying to convince people of it, it's just not going to work. It's just, there has to be um consent on both sides that I'm going to open up the channel to be able to provide Reiki or shamanic alignments, and that they are open to receiving. If I'm sitting there trying to convince somebody of trying this out, it's just the magic kind of goes away.
Well, yeah, I mean, they have to be open to it. It's like therapy was for a lot of people for a long time, like, or marriage counseling. Like, a lot of times people be off to it because it's just, oh, we don't go to my family doesn't go to counseling. We're Italian, we're German. Like, pick an ethnicity that people would use as an excuse. But nowadays, like, therapy is one of the most people go to therapy of some kind, like, every day. Like, not every day, but every week at least. Like,
Yeah.
it's I mean, I went to therapists for years. They did nothing for me because there was nothing wrong with me. It was just, I was kind of being forced to go. But I mean, I personally, I don't think there was anything wrong with me, but I could be wrong. But there are people my wife would probably disagree with that too. But at the end of the day, it's just like, you can't force people to do what they don't want to do. Like, it's just, you're
Yeah.
never going to be able to. They have to be open to it, or it's not going to work. If you don't have an open mind, nothing's going to work. And the way you put it, like that, you pretty much manifested yourself out there, and you put yourself out there, and just people eventually are going to come because they're going to be looking for something, and you're there.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm a
that's
strong believer in free will. And along with that, it's like spiritual free will as well. Like, you're a completely sovereign spiritual, spirit, and nobody anywhere can make you do anything or convince you of anything that you're not ready for. And so I just don't put a lot of my energy in that, because I truly do believe, like, when you're ready, the right person will show up.
which I think a lot of people in like the holistic line of work, that's just, they all feel the same way. Because like, I see all these people, like, I have almost 2,000 followers on Facebook, so I see a lot of posts out there that I follow, like 1,800 people, or maybe not that big, but I follow like 1,500 people, something like that. And I see a lot of these people, and I see like their daily struggles that they put out on Facebook for some reason. I don't know why, but I am personally not one that I'm going to put my personal struggles on Facebook, because I don't want people knowing my business. But these
Right.
people do it, and it's just like, I don't see in the comments like people saying like, I can help you, please call this number. Like, I don't see
Oh my
that.
God.
Like, I don't see that, and that's a good thing, because I mean, well, one, if you're asking people to come to you for help, they're not going to come to you. Like, you have to, or they may, and they're going to get turned away very fast because they're not ready for it. Like, they have to be ready. Like,
Yeah, I feel like anybody that tries to approach you, I do get DMs randomly of like, my energy was attracted to you. Like, do you want a reading? Like,
that
send me $500. Like,
those are scams, and I get those occasionally on Instagram. I get those on Instagram, only on Instagram.
yeah.
And it's just like, I've interviewed some of these people who send me them, and I'm just like, okay, they got hacked. They got hacked, because I know this person personally, and they would not do this. Like, they don't have that energy about them where they are out there for the money. Like my good friend, Jason Zuck, the social psychic. Like, I call him a good friend, even though we only talked once, but we had a connection. He messaged me like a couple months after we recorded, and he's like, the exact same thing you just said. He sent me that in a message, and I'm just like, he must have got hacked, because that's not something he would do. Like, if I wanted to approach him for something, he would gladly help me, but he would not ever come to me saying like, I'm
Yeah.
attracted to your energy today. Like, no, he's not like that. Like, no, I know this guy. He's cool. He's cool as shit. Like, he wouldn't do that.
That's crazy.
And it's
Yeah, somebody copied my profile and I had an old coworker text me and saying, "Is this you?" Like, no, that's a fake one.
it's the same as Facebook where people copy profiles and they text you
Yeah,
saying, hey, I'm locked in my profile. Can you enter this code for me? And then it basically gives them access to your profile and then you're screwed. So
scary.
to all the people out there, if you haven't heard of this yet, don't do that. But this is your warning for Paranormal Normal. But I mean, it's just, I don't know, in this day and age, in this horrible world we live in nowadays, where scams are left and right, and where the government is out of freaking control at this point. I mean, it's just, I mean, my good friend Amanda was posting today on like online all these bills that are up in different senates around the nation, and
Mhm.
abortion bills and like freedom of speech bills, basically. And it's just like, why are we debating these things? We decided on these things 30, 40 years ago, hundreds of years ago. Like, why are we debating these still? Like, people should have freedom of speech to the fullest. You shouldn't be, I shouldn't be able to get charged for saying something on my podcast that upset somebody. Like, it's just, and I mean,
Seriously,
don't even get me started on the
scary.
whole, don't even get me started on the whole Roe v. Wade thing, because that's not this platform, and I don't want to do that here. But it's just, if women want to get abortions, they should be able to get abortions. That's all I'm going to say. Like, it's their right. That's all I'm going to say about it. But, and do we really need more people that are living off the government? I mean, I'm living off the government as is, so I can say that. But do we really need more people that are living off the government than there already is? Like, I don't think so. But that's just my personal opinion. Like, and one helps the other, kind of. So, and that's my opinion, and I expect no one to follow me for that. But still. But all right, so yes, you do have a podcast, and I did want to give you time to talk about it, because I'm actually interested, and I totally would have said at the beginning of the episode if I realized it, but I kind of glossed over that fact.
No, it's okay.
But the Beyond Meditation podcast, so is it just a solo show where it's you giving people advice every week, or do you have guests occasionally?
So I actually host it with my good friend Anna, and we've been on this spiritual path for some years now. I started a little earlier and had been sharing a lot with her, and we realized that a lot of our conversations were so deep and interesting that we decided to record them, and then we started to bring guests on. So we have different guests every week, every week, about different things. I mean, we just had Kadrick Olson, who also is on Gaia, talking about Nordic rituals and shadow work and all the good things that he talks about. And we called it Beyond Meditation because, like you, I am not great at meditating, and there's too many thoughts to put aside. So we decided to talk about all the other types of methods out there that people can use to, get on their spiritual path.
Interesting, and I'm telling you, look, if you're interested in it, look through my past episodes. I guarantee there's some guests that you would love to have on that show.
Okay, will do.
I mean, there's the one that sticks out in my, okay, there's a bunch that stick out in my head, but I mean, I've had a couple past life transgressionists that would probably be great for your show. Carol Collins, the Pittsburgh medium.
Ooh.
She speaks to the Jeshua Collective, and they give her. She actually did she went into a trance on my show, basically, like totally unprovoked and unknown, and like pretty much gave me advice about my podcast, and I was like, it was something special. Like, it's
That's
one of my most
incredible. I will go back and listen.
it's like, honestly, like, and if you need help getting out or reach out to them, I can gladly reach out, because
Thank you.
podcasters need to work together. I fully believe that. But
Agreed.
and people in the paranormal spiritual world need to work together too, because yes, there's a lot of us now, but there also are a lot of fakes and frauds out there in that world as well, that the real ones need to stick together to try to make, because we're trying to make this world a better place. We're trying to get these messages out there so people embrace more than the regular day-to-day life they have, and that they see there's more out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I've had a lot of guests that would have nothing to do with your show as well, because they're more on the cryptid or alien extraterrestrial side of paranormal.
Oh, I'm down to speak to them as well.
Well, there's some interesting ones there too as well then, but take a look at who's been on, and if you ever need help reaching out to one, let me know. I'll gladly help. But
thank you.
But since you said that, actually, kind of curious, because I love talking to people that aren't really on that side paranormal, about that side paranormal. What is your belief on like extraterrestrial life? Do you think it exists, or?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My dad used to watch a lot of alien stuff in the 90s, and that got me really curious. Like, I would always be kind of in the background, like, what is this? Like, what's happening? But I think
like documentaries or like X-Files type stuff.
documentaries. Yeah, documentaries, people getting abducted and things like that. And I think that we would be foolish to think that we're alone in this massive universe. I definitely think that they do exist. What they look like or who they are, I have no idea, no clue.
Even the experts can't tell you what they look like or who they are. But well, some try to say they can, but I mean, I don't know.
There's no proof.
Well, I actually had the guest I had on last night. He wrote a book called UFO of God, and he sees these balls of light UFOs every night. Almost, if he's looking for them, he'll see them, and he believes that they are of a religious nature in a way. Which he's not the first guest I've had to say that, but I personally am agnostic, and I don't like to say I believe in any religion 100%.
Right.
I believe there's bases for all of them, but whether it's based on things that really happened or things that somebody made up to get people to listen to them, I don't know. And that's the problem I have with it. But let me ask you this: if there are extraterrestrials, do you believe they actually come from other planets, or do you believe they come from like different dimensions? That's the question.
I don't know. I don't think that they come from other planets. I think it's definitely different dimensions. I don't know. There's just so much weird information out there. I haven't been able to like really form a full hypothesis on it, but I definitely think it's like more of a dimension thing, and they know how to go from dimension to dimension versus other planets. I feel like if there were aliens and other planets, we've already discovered that.
I mean, I 100% agree with where you're coming from, but that's not necessarily true that we would discover them, because it doesn't mean they're in our galaxy if they're out there in other planets. I mean, the universe is constantly expanding, and there are more and more planets that we're finding out about that. I mean, they found planets that are basically exactly like Earth and have everything Earth has, and we can't go there, or we can't see there to know if there's life there or not. I mean, I saw a post today on Facebook while I was letting my dogs run loose for a half hour so they can sleep during this interview. Good dogs. And like I saw a picture on Facebook, and it's like dinosaur remains found on Mars, and like it actually showed like this is the skull, this is the back, and I'm like, I don't know if I believe that. I mean, it looks different than any other. It looks different remains from any other dinosaur I've ever seen on Earth, but I don't. Is it possible? I mean, nothing's impossible in this world, I believe. But I mean, one of the theories I kind of subscribe to is we might have been a species on Mars one time, and then we came to Earth because Mars was dying.
Right.
Like that famous meme on Facebook. What if Adam and Eve were the last remaining survivors of Mars and they fled to Earth?
Right.
And what if the Garden of Eden is where they crashed down their spaceship and it broke into 1,000 pieces or whatever, and that's what we find when we look. I don't know.
I love that theory.
There's so many wormholes I can go down. I mean, I also have a theory that we're prisoners on Earth, that another race of extraterrestrials put us here because we were from another planet and we were dangerous, which humans are dangerous. That's so hard to believe. But I mean, that's so hard to believe. But I mean, what if we're prisoners here? And that's why that could explain Bigfoot, Dogmen, and all the other paranormal creatures out there as well, because they could be prisoners too. And what if UFOs are prison wardens, making sure we're staying put and that we're not getting too far? And I mean, I literally have blown other paranormal podcasters' minds with this theory, and like they'll message me like 3 days later, like, I'm still thinking about what you said, and it's still.
I would be thinking about this for days. That's insane. that's a good one. That's a good theory.
I don't know if I to this day, I don't remember if I heard that somewhere or if like it was just an original thought I had, which I mean, it's hard to believe that an original thought was that, but I mean, it's just, what if we're prisoners? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of us, and I'm pretty sure you can, from your clientele, I'm pretty sure you agree with this, we feel like prisoners on this planet a lot of time. We feel like star seeds alone, that's the point of being a star seed, is you don't feel like you're meant to be on this earth.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I don't know if you worked with star seeds before, but
I have, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. There's so much that we don't know.
That's the downfall and the double-edged sword of the paranormal is there's so much we don't know, and we're not going to get answers anytime freaking soon, because even if the government knows stuff, they're not going to tell us everything. Even if they know it all, they're not going to tell us everything. I mean, according to my guest last night, we're going to be getting some kind of news this summer that we may or may not want to know, but about extraterrestrials. I mean, he claims to be the CIA's most watched alien investigator.
Oh,
he claims
his name?
Give me 1 second, because I gotta look at my calendar for that. Because Chris Bledsoe. He wrote a book. He wrote a book called UFO of God, and he has, according to him, talked to the highest people in Washington, and he wouldn't give me many details because he wants people to buy his book, and I respect that. Because if I wrote a book, I'd want people to buy it too. But
right.
I mean, I respect it. I respect the hustle. But I mean, I wish he'd give me more answers on the podcast. I kind of do, but he hinted at a lot, and I gotta buy his book. I said last night I gotta buy his book, and I didn't do it today. I gotta buy his book because I want to read it. Like, it's hook, line, and sinker. It worked. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, he says there's something coming this summer that we're going to find out something else besides the fact that the government admits that UFOs are real. But
interesting. All right, I'll keep my eyes peeled, even though I don't watch the news.
I have a feeling if it's as big as he says it's going to be all over Facebook. It's going to be all over Instagram. It's going to be all over everywhere. And all the paranormal podcasters like me are going to be doing specials if it's going to be as big as he claims it's going to be. I mean, I don't know. There's instances already of, I don't know if you ever heard the story of Valiant Thor.
Mm-mm.
Valiant Thor is supposedly, there's some proof to this, but there's no definitive proof. During Eisenhower's reign as president, there supposedly was an extraterrestrial named Valiant Thor who was a Norse extraterrestrial because they look like Norsemen. Supposedly he came down, and no one really knows where his ship landed or anything, but supposedly he was at the White House. He was at the Pentagon during Eisenhower's presidency, trying to convince us not to go to nuclear war, not trying to keep us from going to nuclear war. And I wouldn't believe it at all, except for the fact that there's pictures of this guy next to Eisenhower. No one knows who he is. He looks like a Norse gentleman. Like, he looks like he's from Sweden or Finland or one of those countries. And Eisenhower's daughter later said in interviews that she met it, and it was really there.
What?
So, I mean, the fact that this isn't a more well-known case blows my mind. But of course it's not, because why would the government promote this if it was true? But I mean, it sounds almost like the storyline from the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. Like, that's what it sounds like, but without the robot helper that was on the alien ship on that one. But I mean, it sounds like that storyline basically, but there was so much UFO activity when the first nuclear bomb dropped because they saw they exist. I 100% believe they exist. So I can say they saw what we were doing, and they were like, "Oh, if these people ever get to space, we are fucked. Like we are gonna be in for over our heads more than we want to be with this dirtball plan of freaking cavemen." Because to this day, we are still technically cavemen, according to probably more advanced species. We are cavemen still on a dirt planet. So I mean, I don't know. It just blows my mind in a way that like this is not a more well-known case, and I love to bring it up so people hear about it because it's like look into it. It's out there. I heard on a podcast to begin with a long time ago when Parcast was doing their Extraterrestrial podcast.
Yeah, I just Googled it so I can look at it after this. I was like, I can't forget this.
Yeah, Valiant Thor, which they called him that. Well, that was his name supposedly. That was okay. I don't want to say him because who knows if extraterrestrials have genders even, but it was its name according to what I told people. His name was Valiant Thor, which is there a connection there to Norse beliefs that there was a god or extraterrestrial named Thor? I mean, maybe. I mean,
maybe.
I'm a big believer that ancient aliens all were real, and that's what all the ancient gods were really aliens that came down in their flying chariots, as they call them.
I could believe that. I've thought about that. I don't remember what I was watching once, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting, where it just planted that seed that aliens were visiting us as gods at some point. I was like,
Well, I mean, the temples, the pyramids that the ancients built. I mean, yeah, there's slave labor, but slave labor can only do so much. I don't see them climbing and building a pyramid like with slaves. Like I just can't. I can't picture it. I can't imagine it. Like it just blows my mind. And I mean, I've interviewed people who said, "Oh, well, Earth was built around the pyramids. There's an alien structure in the center of the Earth, and the pyramids were just points sticking out, and they built Earth around them." And I was like, one, mind blown. Two, and that's the possibility book, 100%.
yeah.
Like I don't know. Like everything else in the paranormal, I don't freaking know. And I love the paranormal, but it drives you insane because you don't know these things. And it's just, as humans, we want to know the answers. Like that's just life. We want to know the answers to everything. And I don't know. I don't know. And that's would be the tagline for this episode. I don't know. As every episode, I don't know. And I mean, no one can really know unless they're in the high government. And like, if X-Files is right, there's a part of the government that knows.
Lines, yeah.
There's
seeing
a part
it
of the
with
government.
Your own eyes, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there may be a part of the government that doesn't know about all this exists. I don't think the president knows about it even because why would you tell Sleepy Joe anything? But or any president for that matter. Doesn't even have to be Sleepy Joe. But I mean, I've heard rumors that, and I don't want to start this bubble, but I've heard rumors that Trump was going to tell us more about aliens than they originally did, but they stopped him. Somebody stopped him from saying it, and I've heard rumors about it. I mean, I'm not even trying to get into that conversation because that's a whole nother thing going on right now about him. And that's all I've been seeing in my news feed for the last 2 days is about him and people either.
I mean, you could totally see them prepping us for it, right? There's a lot more movies about extraterrestrials. There's a lot more. I mean, SpaceX, right? Disclosure, like the whole. Like they're disclosing a lot more about like UFOs. Like, okay, well, what does that mean?
I think they're testing us. I mean, originally I was among the people that believe that, okay, they're telling us about UFOs now because they want to distract us from COVID. Didn't work, but they tried. And then people didn't even pay attention to it though because of COVID. So that's the thing. Like,
I thought it was more of a prep, like prepping us. It's years so that we're not like completely shocked when.
100% possible. That's what they're doing too. I mean, 100% possible. I believe that as well. But the fact that they didn't announce it till there was a worldwide pandemic going on, and like because they know people aren't going to pay attention to that because what's going on with COVID? That's the important story, not this little story over here about UFOs.
Yeah.
Oh, what all the crazy people that were saying it for years were right. Oh no, look over here where there's COVID. Like,
right.
It was basically like a magic trick. Like, look at this hand. No, this hand's more important. But it's just, I don't know. I mean, could they be prepping us for more? 100% believe that because if the government does tell us about aliens one day, it's going to be in steps. They're not going to just come out and say, there's aliens already
No,
here.
yeah, it's gonna be through Hollywood. It's gonna be, baby things that happen so that we're like not surprised when it happens.
Until the day they just come out and say, "Oh yeah, there's extraterrestrials," and guess what? They're not as cute as Baby Yoda. Here they are. And then Hillary Clinton and Biden rip off their reptilian mask. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Maybe not. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I mean, Trump could be reptilian for all I know. Who am I to say? I don't really follow. I was a registered Republican for years, but I don't follow either side.
I don't think he's one of them. They treat
I
him like an outcast, so I don't think he's one of them.
He's definitely not. I mean, he was a businessman who became a celebrity who
Right.
decided to run for president, and people liked him so much that he got elected. I mean,
Right.
and now they're trying to bring him down because he got that far. And that to me just spells so many different things, but I'm not getting into that because it's not a political show and I'm not trying to.
I appreciate that. I have my own opinions that I don't really voice to anybody. So
Yeah, I'm not trying to lose half my listeners because they don't like Trump. Like if you want to know how I feel about the whole situation, message me personally and I'll gladly tell you. And hopefully I won't lose you then because I'll have your respect for telling you. But still, I'm not broadcasting it on a video that hundreds and hundreds of people see every week. So like it's just not gonna happen. But I mean, I don't know. It's just there's too much unknown in this world, and through people like you, people like me, and all the others out there in our community, hopefully we can try to make it a little easier for when this all comes crashing down on us, which it will one day. It all will one day.
it all will. Yeah.
I have coined the fact that I've been saying for a year now. Wait until the next pandemic, and Bigfoot will be real. People will say, "Oh, look, we captured a Bigfoot," and then they'll say, "Like, oh yeah, we know about Bigfoot for a good couple hundred years. We move them around like Native Americans, different reservations, and we keep them safe." Like, I have a feeling it's coming. It's coming, but it's going to take a pandemic so they can say it without people noticing too much.
Right.
Like,
right.
God damn you, government. God damn you. But tell the people where they can find all your services and where they can find your podcasts and just advertise yourself to the fullest.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on Instagram, Krista Luna Vortex is my handle. I also have a website, www.krista, Luna-Luna.com. And I'm not really on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, but I'm not really on Facebook. So those are the two main places to find me. You can also find my podcast on Spotify. It's Beyond Meditation Podcast with Jassy and Anna. And yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And I mean, gladly I didn't even get into like because I didn't know how much you know about it. So I didn't want to get into like the cryptid side paranormal too much because I didn't want to pry open a door. But always down to do another episode about that if you want. But
yeah, I would love that.
we could definitely get it on the books at some point then. 100%. It's been a fun conversation. And once we start talking about aliens, I was like, ooh. I liked you from the first like few minutes, but I'm like, as soon as we get to that point, I'm like, oh, return guest.
That's awesome. I love that. I would love to come back and chat some more.
We'll have to make that happen, listeners. And of course, all my listeners know you can find me on Paranormal the New Normal / Maniacal Music Musings podcast for the S group on Facebook. You can find me as Jeremy Bryant on Facebook too. You can find me on Twitter and the Gram as @JuggaloBastard. You can find me on TikTok as @JuggaloBastard Podcast. And you can find us on YouTube as Paranormal the New Normal, where this is being streamed right now, like all my lives. And I want to thank Jassy for coming on. It's been an amazing episode, and I cannot wait to do it again because it's truly been an enlightening conversation and a fun conversation. And with that, I will see you in half a week to all my listeners and to all my watchers. Thank you for watching. I'll be back next week at some point with another live. I'm not sure when exactly. I want to say Monday, but I could be completely wrong. I don't even know my own schedule unless I look at the calendar. That's just how crazy it is. But thank you all. Have a good one.